So, John, what is your number one thing? Your number one or two things that you would say, okay, these are things that need to be tightened up or completely changed.
This is my number one thing, and I decided to get a little crazy with it.
Uh-oh.
With it just crazy enough that it would really shake things up, right?
Can we get the Batman, the Bruce Wayne, let's get nuts drop in?
I can certainly try. If you hear it here, it's because I was able to find it and pull it off. If you don't, I wasn't. I'm sorry. I did a fair amount of research on this, and I saw a lot of people saying like the refs just need to enforce the game, right? The carries are getting out of control again. Sure, I get that. Moving screens are getting out of control. Sure, I get that. I saw a lot of people talking about offensive players putting their head down and bullying their way into a lane and then expecting a foul call, basically flopping to try and get free throws. Yeah, sure. The referee should do a better job of calling the game the way it's meant to be called, but also those rules are in place and the refs aren't doing that. So whatever. I like this one, and I appreciate that you knew the distances of the line and the line moving, because the NBA 3-point shot, which again is worth one more point than inside the line, is a different distance from different parts of the court. If you were in the corners, that is a 22-foot shot. If you are above the break, that's at least a 23 and 9 inches shot. It's basically a 24-foot shot. It's 2 feet further away, and therefore it's more difficult. The easiest, most valuable shot in the entire court is the corner three. And I've seen a bunch of people draw up a new 3-point line that just does not extend all the way down to the corner. And it's like, screw it, we're getting rid of corner threes. Because you know what it feels like when you watch NBA now, and it never really felt like this before to me, but it does now. You know when you play pickup, and you're playing ones and twos, and then all of a sudden you go and play in like a real game for something, and all those shots that were worth 1 are now worth 2, and all the shots that were worth 2 are now worth 3, and you watch the numbers go flying up, and you're like, damn, I scored like 15 points today. How the hell did I score 15 points? Because in your head, 15 points is insane. Because normally you got to get there with ones and twos, but you could just catch a heater. You make 3 or 4 threes in a game, and all of a sudden you're looking at 15 points. And that's what it feels like. It feels like they're playing a different game in terms of the scoring. And the corner three, I think, is like half the problem. I think if you got rid of the corner three, it would really fix a lot of things.
I got a text from a GM yesterday. I was texting coaches and execs, and I was texting the league office too, and they clearly are not ready to go into radical changes territory, right? They think I'm a little bit on the militant side, which I probably am. But GM I texted yesterday, I said, any rule changes you would make to help defenses. And he said, not much rule changes, but adjustments for more appropriate physicality for the defensive players. The offensive player gets touch fouls, but also gets away with push-offs. And you see that. You will see a player use the arm bar, which you cannot use anymore really to defend. But if you're an offensive player, you can use that arm bar. As long as you don't fully extend, you can use it to protect yourself, so to speak. And then you'll see people sort of do more than protect themselves. You'll see them send players flying. I have a radical one. My radical one is to allow hand checking on the perimeter. John is shaking his head. John is losing his mind over there.
I thought about this one. I don't like it. But continue.
Here's the reason why I like it, or why I'm willing to entertain it, is because there's so much switching and hunting on the perimeter. What happens is teams will take their best player, have them at the top of the key, and they will screen and screen and screen and move the worst defender into the action, or some level of mismatch where you have a small on a big or a big on a small. And you have that switching because you're not allowed to hold the player up to give the extra defender time to recover from the screen, right? So if you're allowing me to hand check, like if you're on YouTube, like you can see, like if you allow a player to hand check, that gives them time to recover to get back in front. That's not a pick and roll hand check. That's just the hunting of a weaker defender. If you're in motion, then it doesn't matter as much to me. Now, I'm sure there's mechanisms or unintended consequences that come with that, but I think that is something that we can see, because before you would get switches, and a former player brought this up, and this is a big man, so he was quite funny about it. He said, back in the day, when I would get a switch on a player and I would have a smaller player on me, I'd put my big paw up and they would throw the ball down to me and I would go to work, draw a double team kick or go out and, whatever. He said, now you get a switch. If I get a switch of a smaller player on me, I'm getting cleared out because the guard wants to go to work. Whether that becomes a step back three, a drive to the basket, so he needs the space. That's what the game has become. And the game has become almost homogenized in a way that everybody's hunting the corner three. Everybody's hunting these mismatches to go and maximize the quote unquote shot profile. We can't take these long twos. The numbers say we can't take the long twos. So we can't do that anymore. And people often reminisce, sometimes a little too nostalgically, if that's even a word that I can use, nostalgically. I had to look that up. But they reminisce in such a nostalgic way because of the diversity of offenses. You had some teams do the run and gun. You had some teams like the Bulls, they played triangle. Could the triangle work in today's game? Michael Jordan was the greatest mid-range shooter towards the end of his career in the NBA. He could hit everything from 18 and in and 21 and in. Like you make him a three-point shooter, you might have more success there, but the triangle kept him on the move and he could operate in those middle thirds and he could still get to the basket when he needed to. But he operated from 16 to 22 feet and was still graceful and it was still entertaining and all that. But the numbers say we can't take those shots anymore. We can't have a high diet of those shots anymore. Y'all, I don't mind that. If that's your range, that's your range. Like take the shot you can make. Maybe we'll talk about this in the Love Doctor episodes. Hey man, take shots you can make, dog. I got friends, John, you know this? I got a friend, and he's been on the show before, but I won't tell you who it is. I got a friend who told me, Vinny, your philosophy, he says, I would have a really good batting average. As far as how he used to approach, people of the opposite persuasion. He said to me, he was like, you go for free throws. You want to have a higher percentage. He said, look, man, if I bat 300, that means I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm like, yeah, that's true. Hey, but you got 7 strikeouts too. I don't know about these strikeouts, right? So, but the point is, take shots you can make. Not everybody doesn't have to be a 3-point shooter. And because of all that, there's a certain type of player that can't play in the NBA anymore. And I don't like that. Charles Oakley, I literally brought this name up to a coach last night. Charles Oakley could not play in today's NBA. He was a decent spot up shooter from 17 feet off the double team. But he wasn't a 3-point shooter. Rough, rugged, probably a little too rough, a little too rugged. But you mean to tell me there's no place in the NBA for that type of player anymore? I don't know if that's an NBA I want to consistently watch. Am I tripping, John?
No, and I think we're barking up the same tree, and I'll explain to you why I like
eliminating corner threes. I like eliminating the corner threes.
Well, and I think this solves a lot of these issues, right? Because when I think back to the form of basketball that I grew up with, yes, I am one of those people who's like, I like the diversity of different types of offenses. And part of what does that is just having different parts of the floor be activated. And when we were growing up, maybe the most important part of the floor in a half-court offense was the post. And I'm not just saying like, oh, big guys near the basket. I'm literally talking side basket to the corner 3 spot. And in your head, if I say these names, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But Hakeem used that area in a very different way than Patrick Ewing used that area, in a very different way than Shaquille O'Neal used that area. And then there were teams that didn't have the big man who could do anything in the post, and they had to figure out other ways to score points. Now, I think what happened was everyone's like, we don't need Patrick Ewing and hell, Dirk Nowitzki shooting 16, 17, 18-foot shots right there when they can back up 3 feet and it's a 3-point shot in the corner. And like, I think the guy who really captures what changed in the NBA, as far as you can see his career and be like, oh, that was what the NBA was and what it turned into all in one career, is LaMarcus Aldridge. Because for the first half of his career, he was one of the best post scorers in the NBA. He could face you up. He could back you down. He had spin moves. He had the little like floater hook shot thing. He could hit a fadeaway shot on you. And then it got to the point where I think it was when he was with the Spurs, where they were like, we need you to back up 4 feet and turn those 18-footers into 22-foot corner threes. And he figured it out. He was pretty good at it, but he had to change his entire philosophy because everyone else in the league was like, that part of the floor is not valuable anymore because it's so close to the most valuable part of the floor, which is the corner three. So I think if you eliminate the corner three, you make that part of the floor valuable again. And especially because everyone's still going to want to shoot threes, you're going to have all these players up towards the elbows, up above the break, and it's going to create more space in that low post area. You get those guys who can make a 15, 16-foot shot in their sleep. That's more valuable now.
Hey, and sometimes in general, y'all, and I said this on Twitter, and it's a football reference or a football video game reference. I like seeing basketball games on All Madden. I don't know. Sometimes a struggle is good. Everything doesn't have to be easy and pretty. Sometimes ugly basketball is good basketball. It doesn't have to always look one way. It doesn't always have to look pretty. If you're going to be a playoff team of consequence, you see it in the playoffs when teams can't hit shots. They don't have a backup plan. They don't look towards the other parts of real estate and say, okay, there's valuable real estate here that we can exploit. It is, man, we got to, not that they turn into robots, because players are players. They're going to go out and play. But you don't see someone like a guy like Jason Tatum, who has made a living out of taking the step back three, sometimes a little too much. At 6'9", he can't walk somebody down to the low, not low box, but mid box. 17, 18 feet, turn around, shoot over the top of you. That's good real estate there. Exploit the real estate. So we've just fixed the league.